Opinions and stories around the game we love, told by your favorite storytellers. Stay up to date with all things cricket. Subscribe to Cricbuzz's YouTube channel and press that bell icon now.
It's Cricbuzz Chatter Day 4, the SCG. Adam Collins and Mike Hussey with you. And I'm at the SCG, and it is Usmania. Twin tons for Usman Khawaja. Just the 9th man to do it in Ashes history. Just the 3rd to do it here at the Sydney Cricket Ground. This storied history of this venue. His home ground, his spiritual home ground. He might be a Queensland player these days, Huss, but I mean, what a story. 2.5 years out of the Test team, back for seemingly 1 week when he arrived here a few days ago. But I tell you what, he might have a few more Test matches to play after this.
Well, you're right. It's going to be very hard to drop him now. 100 in each innings. And just the way he scored his 100 today, you know, it was just an unbelievably good innings. Once again, we know he's such a classy player, but he looked like he was batting on a different pitch to everyone else. You know, he was just scoring at will off the spinners, scoring all around the ground. He was playing his trademark reverse sweeps and conventional sweeps, but also hitting nicely through cover as well, playing the fast bowl as well. You know, the way he plays the short ball is very impressive. Off the back foot. So it was a really fluent innings. And the Pat Cummins, the Australian captain, wanted the scoreboard to keep ticking over, and he was the perfect man at the crease. So it was an incredible innings. It was interesting just to see him once he scored the 100 to take a few moments. He's a very spiritual man, and he took a few moments just to show his gratitude and say a couple of prayers. And I don't think he could believe what was happening. You know, he's never done it before in his first class career. But to be able to come out of the wilderness, really, and to score 100 in each innings is an unbelievable effort. And I think it's something that he'll really cherish for the rest of his career.
Yeah, you consider it's only happened 87 times in the 145-year history of Test cricket. Puts it into some kind of perspective, really. Stephen Smith, the last man to do it for Australia. But what it does do is, I suppose, it reinforces that Marcus Harris missed out again. And look, I am acutely aware of how well Harris played last week at Melbourne. A couple of starts here, quite a classy 38 in the first innings, but getting out to a spinner in Jack Leach, who took 4 wickets today, we'll come to him in a moment. It just means that with Khawaja so dominant against spin in recent years in the Shield, Australia playing all of that Test cricket in Pakistan, Sri Lanka and India later in the year, it just builds an argument that's impossible to ignore.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want to be a selector. I thought Marcus Harris looked really good again today. You know, he looks composed at the crease. His defence looks good. He gets very good starts, but hasn't had the ability to go on with it. And he just desperately needed to go on with it today and get a 3-figure score. If he had got a 3-figure score, it would have been an interesting decision from the selectors. It makes it difficult now for them. I feel as though there's 3 players fighting out for 2 positions in the team. You'd expect Travis Head to come straight back in after his 150 earlier in the series. I don't know, how can you leave Usman Khawaja out after that? We know he's a versatile player and can bat at the top of the order. He can bat in the middle order. So there's going to be some interesting discussions. I know they'd love to stick with Marcus Harris and they'd love to back him in, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough now after Khawaja's performance in this Test match.
Yeah, there's all sorts of hard luck stories in Test cricket. Andy Gantone making a century in his first Test, never playing again. Curtis Patterson, 100 in his most recent Test match, never playing again. Potentially, I suppose. Brad Hodge, a double 100 then, left out 3 Test matches later. So this does happen from time to time, but it feels even if Khawaja weren't to play next week in Hobart, and it feels unlikely that this year is almost set in stone for him here at this stage, as it may well be for Cameron Green. I'm not saying he was necessarily under pressure, and what a great option he gives them, balancing that attack, the flexibility they'll have in the subcontinent. But what timing for him to make 74, to add 179 with Khawaja, to go through the gears, to get through a tough start as well. England were bowling well when Green came out. They were setting aggressive fields to him, but popping a ball into the trumper stand before getting out, before the declaration came. It was a reminder that this guy has serious skill, and he timed his run, as he did here last year against India, to perfection as far as coming back into form.
Oh, without doubt. You know, we know how good a package he is, and you know, we've seen his bowling really improve over the last year or so, and he's getting more confidence with his body and with his bowling. We probably just haven't quite seen his batting kick into gear just yet. He's been doing it for Western Australia for a couple of years, so we know what he can do, but it's just breaking through that barrier of being able to do it at Test match level and proving to himself that he can do it at Test match level. You're right, he hasn't got the runs he would have liked so far in this series, and with that, every innings, it builds up a little bit of pressure, a bit of anxiety, a bit of stress and tension, and you could just see early in his innings again, he was nervous, he was tentative. but just the longer he was there. And I think, you can't underestimate the calming influence of Usman Khawaja at the other end, with someone with so much experience. Would have been talking to him and helping him through that tricky situation to start. And then there was a couple of shots just before tee. It was a straight drive off Jimmy Anderson, and then a couple of balls later, a pull shot that wasn't that short. And you just sort of felt like, okay, he's starting to grow into this innings and he's starting to get a bit more confident. And I think that was important. So he could come out after the break with the team looking to push on and press forward for the declaration. He was able to sort of free up a little bit and play some shots, much like he did against India last year when he scored 80 odd there. So I think this innings will do his confidence the world of good. And from an Australian perspective, I know that all the fans are hoping to see that on a more consistent basis.
Just going back to Khawaja for a moment, the contrast that's provided between innings 1 and innings 2. The first night he comes in really tough conditions at 117 for 3 and bats for a long stretch of time, negotiates a second new ball, an excellent second burst from Stuart Broad, a pitch that's up and down. And then today can strum 100 in a session and a half, including at one point 60 runs in 50 minutes after tea when the pair put on 90 like they were batting on a different planet. Like that versatility that he offers and knowing that he has gears to move through, how will that influence the decision the selectors have to make in the next couple of months?
Oh, well, it was a complete innings, really. Both of the innings, the first and the second. And he's got so much experience now. He knows his game. He knows his game so well. He knows when to attack, when to maybe just defend a little bit. He understands the flow of anytime you have a big long innings, there's always going to be ebbing and flowing going along. Times when the opposition are bowling well and the pressure's on. So you need to just knuckle down. And he showed that with his good solid defence. But then he identified the times when he needed to attack and move the game forward. And he did that beautifully throughout both innings of this test match. So he just showed all his experience, really. And a great understanding of the game and what's needed, what the team requires in certain situations.
A couple of points for England. One, Mark Wood has now dismissed Marnus Labuschagne 3 times in 22 balls since he moved to number 1 on the ICC rankings before the Boxing Day test match. This guy just gives it his always on his hands and knees in his follow through, always bowling up and around 145 to 150 kilometres an hour. He is utterly irrepressible. So that's Mark Wood. And at the other end, Jack Leach, who's been so short of confidence, coming out there today, bowling Smith with one that went straight on, finding the outside edge of Harris, getting Green out eventually, and then Carey, first ball, he was actually denied the chance to bowl for a hat trick. I don't know if you picked up on that on your commentary, but it was a bit stiff from Cummins to declare one ball after putting Carey in, but that's a whole different conversation, I suppose. But just the idea of England, until probably the tea break, showing a great deal of resilience, especially with the ball.
Oh, they certainly did. And you can't knock the England bowlers. They tried their heart out. Mark Wood, he typifies that. He just keeps running in hard all day, giving his best effort. And I think he's quite inspirational, really, to everyone and certainly for all the English fans. And then, I was happy for Jack Leach as well. I thought he bowled well today. He didn't have that defensive negative frame of mind by bowling round the wicket and just trying to keep things tight. He looked to attack. He looked to bowl wider of the off stump to the left-hander and trying to hit the rough, and things were a little bit more in his favour today. But you could see it's a lot more fun for him when he's attacking and bowling with a bit more confidence and looking for wickets. I thought he bowled beautifully and deserved the rewards that he got today. He could have had the chance to bowl for a hat trick and maybe get a 5-wicket haul, which I'm sure no one would have expected. After the way the Australians treated him in Brisbane.
And just quickly, your thoughts on the declaration. They set, in theory, a target of 388, but in all reality, 11 overs tonight, 90 overs tomorrow, 101 overs. You're thinking on the balance of that from Patrick Cummins. Yeah,
I think it's about right. I know some people out there were thinking it's a little bit conservative, but you don't want to give England any chance. I guess the only thing that might have come into my mind is would you have a close look at the weather forecast? There's the threat of perhaps some rain around, and so on the 5th day, so that might have made Pat Cummins think about declaring a little bit earlier. But I think there's plenty of time to bowl England out, as weather permitting, and there's certainly enough in this pitch. We can see some variable bounce. There's some rough there for Nathan Lyon to work into. So you'd expect the Aussies have got enough there in their favour to create 10 chances tomorrow. They'll have to work hard for it. I'm sure England won't go down without a fight. But the other thing you've got to consider is Johnny Bairstow was off the field for most of the day with a badly bruised thumb. Will he bat again? We'll have to wait and see. And Josh Butler, of course, couldn't wicket keep. So, they might even be 2 batsmen down, which is a bad blow for England. And who knows, Stokes also looks in a bit of pain as well. So, it's all up against England, but I'm sure they'll still give it a good crack.
I can tell you one thing. The moment that Pat Cummins sent down that final ball was the moment the rain started falling. Quite heavy rain here at Sydney. The groundsmen were running on and doing their things. So they just got the overs in. Remarkable today. It wasn't rain interrupted based on the radar. But we've learnt one thing in Sydney. Never trust the rain radar. Right, Huss, let's go into the hot spot. Huss, in the hot spot, I'm going to ask you the question that all 20 million Australians who follow the Test team or something like that are considering at the moment. How does it work with Usman Khawaja at Hobart next week, or doesn't it? Or do we just leave Sydney and say, that was a beautiful thing. We go back to plan A, we let Harris play, we bring back Head from COVID, and then we consider the Khawaja question ahead of the Karachi Test match?
Oh, that's a very hot spot, isn't it? I think the selectors would love to back Marcus Harris in and keep him there for the whole series. But it's just a case that's too strong from Usman Khawaja. It really is. 100 in each innings. And what's got to be said is not easy batting conditions. It's not like it's an absolute flat track where 3 or 4 batsmen have found run scoring easy. There's been one other 100 scored so far in this Test match. That was by Johnny Bairstow. Everyone else has struggled at various stages. We've had batsmen getting hit on the body all over the place. So an incredible performance from Usman Khawaja, and I think he's shown, I guess, the world that he is in the top 6 batsmen in Australia. We know he's got versatility as well. He can bat at the top. So I think the selectors will have a serious discussion, but it's going to be very, very difficult to leave him out of Hobart.
And slamming that fast forward button. Huss, I remember this time last year when India were 2 down at stumps on day 4 here at the Sydney Cricket Ground. They became a bit of the walking wounded as well. You've touched on it already, but Bairstow, thumb's no good. Butler, fingers no good. Ben Stokes falling apart, at least his side, but maybe other injuries as well that we don't know about. I don't think any of them are going to play next week at Hobart. But might that just be the spur to get them to bat for 6.5 hours and get to the close? I mean, it could be fascinating. Sometimes teams that are beleaguered are the teams that you're not wanting to necessarily try and bowl out on the final day.
And this is what we love about Test cricket. You never know. You never know what's going to happen. I think everyone had written India off last year. They were on their last legs. They were hanging in there. They were injured, but they found that spirit inside. And I think England can draw from that they'll know the history. There's also other great stories in there as well. There's Zach Crawley and Hamid possibly playing for their careers. Who knows? So there's plenty of motivation there for the English to show that spirit and fight. I'm not going to write them off just yet, but it's going to be very difficult. There's going to be big challenges along the way. The conditions, I think the pitch is certainly not as good as it was last year. And I think the Australian bowlers are probably a little bit fresher than they were this time last year as well. So it's in the Australians' favour, no question. But England, I'm sure, will not go down without a fight.
Yeah, they're 30 without loss at the close of play. Crawley batting positively and Hamid looking organised. They'll return tomorrow with a massive job ahead of them. Who's going to be the Vihari? Who's going to be the Ashwin? Who's going to be the 2 players that see them through? Time will tell. This has been Cricbuzz Chatter. Follow everything that happens through hopefully will be a compelling final day on the scorecard, on the live blog, and at the close of play, when it's all said and done, it'll be him, Mike Hussey, and me, Adam Collins, on Cricbuzz Chatter. Good night from Sydney.